Guys, Josh Koerner here. Hope you've been having a great day today. The GFX50R. This is a super cool looking camera. $4,500, 50 megapixels, 3 frames a second, 1080p 30 video. It sounds a little bit on paper like a very poor melange of two worlds, but once you remember that, oh wait, yeah, it's medium format and this is the cheapest a medium format camera has ever been. Same guts as the GFX50S, same sensor that's got like the highest rating that DP Review has ever given a sensor. It becomes a lot more compelling. And with Fuji's upcoming 50mm f3.5, as well as their additional other lenses that they're bringing into the space to kind of really round out the focal length capability of the system, this is a really cool camera. You don't have to dump, tens of thousands of dollars any longer into a body only for a medium format for this to really take off and work. In the rangefinder style, I feel like it really sets this camera up very well for practical use. Although the GF lenses can be big and cumbersome and heavy, I feel like the rangefinder style body actually works really well for that because it forces you to use 3 points of contact, so you get very steady shots. And I think that means that, while on the whole it could look like, I don't know about that thing, in practice it's really going to work out. Fuji is a very cool company, and I feel like what they're doing with this is a very cool thing. They've left off a couple things though. They've left off the new processor, some of the new color profiles they've developed, and those little things kind of start to eat away at what the GFX50R is for me. When you realize that modern cameras that are full frame, like the D850, the Z7 from Nikon, the A7R III from Sony, can really come quite close to comparable results without having that extra frame size, it becomes a little bit harder to justify. It's interesting because this is a bit of an older sensor in a brand new body with the same old guts, with the same old capacity, but with a new price point that means that more people can get into it, with some new lenses coming soon that mean that more people can shoot the way that they want to, or shoot lighter, use it more as a travel camera, stuff like that. Stuff that you haven't really been able to use medium format for before. It's a really interesting crossroads that this camera is at, because the price point is indicative of a very professional level camera on the cheaper end. The feature set is indicative of perhaps an entry level DSLR, but then the technology inside of it, the sensor that costs like $2,000 a pop, which is crazy, as well as the rest of the guts that are all still very modern and current. They're contemporary to the era in which we live. It's a very interesting melange, right? Because this camera is incredibly capable. It's very much going to yield very high quality images because of the great sensor, because of the great optics that Fuji's made to put in front of it. And it's not offering something that's wholly unique any longer. I really hope that what happens with the GFX100S is they come out with a 100R much sooner afterwards, and more people can buy into the system more fully. But for the time being, this is a camera that, despite being incredibly compelling for nerds like myself, I do feel like still that this could be a camera that could really elevate a lot of photographers' ability to sell their work on the basis of quality of image and quality of color science and a lot of other things. It is also a stopgap that isn't entirely welcome because it's not entirely relevant. And that's really hard. That was really hard for me to swallow, and to an extent still is, because it's a camera that I very much want to own and have in my hands. There are some other things that I probably need to do first on a regular basis, like, pay rent and all that sort of thing. But it is definitely a milestone in digital imaging. And it's also definitely a goal towards which I'm going to be striving, because despite some of the limitations, despite the processor not being entirely up to spec, despite not having on sensor phase detect autofocus, despite not being a new sensor, a couple of updates would have been nice. Despite having some limitations on capture modes, if you will, with it being rangefinder only styled, whereas the GFX, you can take that EVF off. You know, all these things kind of end up, for me at any rate, in a place where I'm like, this is something that I want, but that I don't need, that I'm going to strive for, and I'm going to feel okay buying one if I ever have the opportunity, but I might go for some more practical pieces first. And that's important, because I imagine a lot of photographers are feeling the same way about it. If I can, I want to. But by not making this a more compelling argument, I feel like what Fuji's done is they've gone and said, you know what, we're gonna leave a few people high and dry on this. And by leaving a few people high and dry, they're also kind of parting the waters, if you will. And they're saying, this is the band of people that we know we need to support, but we can't because the cost of doing it is so high. Even though to satisfy this other camp of people, we're bringing costs down as low as we can actually manage. It's a very delicate balance, but I feel like this group of people that's kind of being left out in the cold here by there not being any additional innovation with this camera, they're the ones that, you know, if those few extra pieces had been there, if there'd been IBIS, for example, if there'd been, you know, a little bit better dynamic range or low light performance or a few extra color modes or a slightly faster processor, they really could have gotten hooked on the system. And so Fuji's playing a delicate game here. I think it's going to make sense once the GFX100S comes out to have 100S, 50S, 50R, and then hopefully a 100R between the 50S and the 100S. But it's a little scary because I don't entirely understand why Fuji's doing it, but it's also very motivating because it's like, I want one. And so I'm really interested in what your thoughts are on the GFX50R, because I'm smitten despite the failings that I've tried to address here. And I hope that you've realized that I've tried to be as honest with you as I've been with myself in this decision-making process of, is this a goal that I want to strive for? So I very much appreciate your time and your attention. Don't forget to smash that like button, motor drive all over it, subscribe, comment below, let me know what you think about it. Thank you very much for your time and for your attention, and I look forward to seeing you in the next.